Well, hello everyone. This is Jessie Bowen, host of the Become an Author podcast, and I have a special guest today, a long time friend, the man of the hour, the man who created the GOAT for martial artists. I have with me Grandmaster Lawrence Authur. Hello, sir.
Hello, sir. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Well, I really wanted to have you on. You had such a great event, uh, a few weeks ago. And again, thank you for recognizing, thank you for the opportunity to talk about becoming an author and its value. And your speech on Saturday night was so moving. I wanted to bring back on because as we have been involved in the martial arts for a long time, and we've done a lot of things, and a lot of people that that was back there with us, they know who we are and about us. But it's actually being able to archive that information so it can be useful to be able to inspire someone else. And we're coming out with the Martial Arts Hall of Famer magazine, and we have the who's who things, but we're also helping people to be able to write their story, their message, take that knowledge, and now instead of sitting it on the sideline, is to be able to use it. And so, you had some really good points at the dinner, and we talked about, earlier of, helping people to be able to define their martial arts career by being able to publish and to have that preserved for the future generations.
Right. There the opportunity to we go to these events so we can sit around and talk to each other about the old days, so that we can. That's the most fun of being there, is just talking about the time we were and what we did and how we do it. And the trouble of it is that is your legacy. But it's if you don't record that, as opposed to, telling people stories, if you don't record that, then, well, it becomes a memory, and then memories disappear. So the written word, when they write down what their experiences were, and today technology, you haven't got to write anything. I mean, everything can be transcribed. It's easy to do, but if you don't do that, then your experiences won't outlive you. At the end of you, it's the end of the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really about what you do or prepare for the future generations, instead of saying, "Okay, it all dies with me."
Right. Well, what I experienced this week as we were going and looking for information from some of the posthumous people, I mean, that was a job. They don't exist anymore. If you're a Grandmaster Norris, there's so much information, it'll take a long time for that information to fade away. But there are so many people that don't, it's just that we've lost that, that we can't find anything on them. And so this is one of the reasons why the awards recognition, the things we're doing, the Hall of Famer magazine, and other things is for us to be able to archive that. But not only that, but think about someone picks up a magazine. This is what happened to me, and I saw some pictures online with you and Grandmaster Norris, back in the day. But my very first class day, I went into a convenience store, didn't know nothing about karate. I had my uniform on, and I'm walking out the store, and I see the word karate on a magazine sticking out. And so I go over, this is my number one day. I pick up the magazine, and I open up the front cover, and there's a picture of Grandmaster Chuck Norris with his foot up in a chair, a little old lady, him in his uniform, this gigantic trophy cup on his thigh. I knew at that moment I wanted to be a karate champion.
I remember that ad.
It was that picture
Yeah.
of Chuck Norris, and then I bought every magazine that came out because I wanted to know more. And this is what growing in the martial arts is that we continue to educate ourselves and
Right.
be able to share this information with our students.
Yeah. Yep. We're supposed to. We talk a lot about legacy and leaving a legacy, and I don't think everybody has the same definition of what legacy means. To me, it's a lot more than rank or the trophies or the titles or or how many people know my name. It's legacy to me is what remains in other people because you were here. What did I do to change their life that for the better because we connected in some way? When you spend 50 years doing this stuff, I look back and the things that I don't think so much about the championships or the awards. It's about the instructors, the students that I had. Those people, how they became masters, how they became chief masters and grandmasters, and how they passed it down, and how big that the influence was. That's legacy. But I've also realized something else. If you don't preserve the stories of those instructors and those masters, eventually most of the history, well, disappears. So, legacy isn't just what you leave. It's what you intentionally preserve, and that's because you decide to do well what you're doing, Jesse. I think what you're doing is great. The idea of writing the book and writing biographies and putting them in books and putting them in magazines and honoring people, then the next generation can build on that. But when it's, if you don't do it, it doesn't get done.
Right, and that's true. And that's true, and that's the reason why with the, I work with Professor Gary Lee, the Sport Karate Museum. There's so much that we have going on. Now, I know you have done a lot in your martial arts when we came up, but who's someone that inspired you? Who's the person that influenced you on
Now,
your journey?
I've been fortunate. I really have. I look back on it because I've crossed paths with so many martial artists, instructors, you name it, students and friends and mentors. And some people taught me technique, some taught me leadership, some taught me business. I just got off a business training session with my mentor right before I got on this. Some taught me lessons without realizing that they were teaching me. If I name all people, I would say that Grandmaster Clark is one of my biggest influences on me. But everybody from the gentleman that started me, how I got involved in martial arts, Mike Davis, G.T. Massey, Jimmy Horsley, Randy Williams, Jerry Peddington, everybody who's had an influence on what I do and how I do it, they're part of the legacy. You can learn something from almost anybody that you encounter. And sometimes, you learn what to do, and sometimes you learn what not to do just because of what they did. But they're both lessons have value. So influencing me was I felt like I stood on the shoulders of giants because of the people that were doing. I'm kind of like you were seeing Chuck Norris and you thought that's what I want to do. But you had an instructor who believed in you. Jan Wellendorf is the man that influenced you. He left a legacy because of it. Me too. I mean, I'm not saying you just left it for you. I got it too. So that's the type of people that we all influence people. And the real trick to it is, what are your people? How are they going to influence the next generation? And how will they influence the next generation? If you think of it as, well, they're going to learn it like I did. They're going to go to class long enough, and the instructor's going to throw them into class and say, now go. Yeah, that's not the most efficient way. This should be documented. There should be a way that helps people to get better. And that way changes. Changes all the time.
And when we think about, the future and we're looking at ourselves as a martial artist, uh, that becomes important to the people that want to know it. Your students, do you have a training manual? What's the memory system like? How do you document? In fact, I pulled out one of the magazines that Mr. Wellendorf wrote, way back in the 80s, the first. And that's sort of how I got involved in the publishing, was when the digital camera came out and the copier, you can lease a copier. That's what we did. We shot photographs and put all that in text and created our own book. And that was great for my classroom. But when I was offered a position at Duke University and they discovered that I had a training manual that their students could actually purchase, and now it becomes learning. Now it's not me just teaching them karate, because I have a book, I have a system. And so for 29 years, Duke University Physical Education used my ring binder book. It wasn't even published, but it had the pictures, the illustration, everything in there. But you see, the thing with it was a book, and now it is a published book. But because I had that, it looked like I was prepared. I had a system of education. And that's what we want to think in, if you're doing training programs, but it opens the doors for speaking opportunity, all of these things. And that's the same thing about receiving your awards. Do you share those awards with your students? If you went to the GOAT Awards, did you share that with your local media, or is it stuck in a closet? Because these things can help you grow your martial arts business, and you can become an influencer in your community. And I think that's one of the key things if you're in the martial arts of teaching professionally, or if you're a martial artist and you are, in some form of business. All of these things can be a provider to help you to be able to move to that next level.
Yep. Everybody that was a GOAT received a press release along with all the different media that they had. All you had to do was send it in.
Right.
Quite a few of them got a lot of footage on that.
Well, and I think that's important. So when you're thinking about, becoming an author, I meet so many people that I've got a book I've been working on for 20 years. Well, in the old days, as you were saying earlier when we started, in the old days, we didn't have technology. We didn't have the different things to help us to be able to move forward. Now, if you watch your local news station, it doesn't matter if you're watching CNN or Fox News, everybody's got a book. I mean, everybody they have a book out, and that book is what makes them an expert in that. If you have a children's book, you have a martial arts program, you've got a children's book on self-discipline. When parents come into your martial arts school and they sign and they do their evaluation, I want Johnny to learn self-discipline. Well, you've got a book out that on where if it's even a storybook or coloring book, it really shines the light on you as being an expert in that particular field. So if you want to, you love teaching children, then you should have a book out about your children's classes. What is it you're doing that can help to help kids become better in school, better focus? I write a book on everything. It doesn't matter what I'm getting ready to cross the number 70 of books, and that was on my knee replacement. So, but think about that. How many people, whether they're martial arts or anyone that's preparing for knee surgery, is one of the most common things I'm learning, that don't know how to prepare. They don't know what to expect. And, and I learned that it was way beyond what I was expecting, and, just physical condition and everything else. So I've written a book to be able to help people that are going to do knee surgery so that they can be better. I've got a book on becoming an author. You and I did a part in the Become a Public Speaker, that book. So there are just so many things out there we can share our information and help to be able to move forward.
You know, you mentioned a book. One of our students' dad wrote a book called The 30-Day Pass. Imagine that. And it's his experience from being VIP'd on the street to becoming a student, his son becoming a student, going all the way up through it, getting his black belt. It's a beautiful story that I cherish the book, but he did it without, and just wrote down what he was doing, his experience. So,
well,
anyway.
And that is the key, that we're here to encourage people, because we have people that come to our events. Someone has to be the next generation, and the next generation, especially in the season that we're in, is about archiving and sharing information. And so we are coming out with the Hall of Famer magazine, because we know that there's a lot of people who have been featured in martial arts events and Hall of Fames who have done different things. So the Hall of Famer magazine is designed to be able to help them to be able to market themselves, but to be able to share their experiences, their recognition. And I think, we're adding your event as the first event that we are doing, which was a fantastic event. A lot of great photographs, a lot of different exciting things that's going on. You got a great article there that talks about your event. And I know that you have been to a lot of other events and different things going on. So and as a teacher, especially management, you're phenomenal as a management marketer. And I know you've got your different programs that you're actually doing. So is there anything that you look at that martial artists could use in teaching their classes if they don't have a training manual? That's something that they really should have.
I don't. You blew my head up so big. That I forgot about what you were trying to say to me. That's another whole subject in itself, and that I have lots of manuals that we use in our schools. There's the black belt. There's even when they first join our school, they get a 5-lesson card that they follow. Then they go to a black belt manual. Then they go to a leadership manual. Then they go to an instructor training or a coaches in training manual. And all these manuals are 12-month, 18-month, 24-month length of training time, because we can't remember everything. Memory doesn't work. You've got to have it documented, so that what are you trying to accomplish? I've always tried to accomplish building instructors. I want to build people that can do what I've been doing and can do it better than I can do it. They're younger, they're smarter, they're better looking, and they got great legs, and they can go out there and stand on our shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's not documented, then it changes with every instructor. Every time a new instructor comes along, it's another ball game. It's personality driven and not systems driven. So, when you don't just make this stuff up, you learn it from somebody. You get a mentor. You get someone who has done what you want to do, and you pay them to make you be able to do that. You'll either save it all and that you'll never do it, what you wanted to do, or you'll save great deal of mistakes and cost, because they'll give you shortcuts every step of the way. And now that has to be your legacy, though. What are you leaving when you do? Then if you've got manuals, you've got magazines, you've got books, you've got things that they can carry on with. And I can't express it enough that it was a lot harder to do it when I did it than it is now. Now you can go have an operation on your knee and you can write a book right after it. You know, and I know that that makes it simplified, but it really is. It has become simplified. It's just a matter of saying, hey, that's what I want to do. I read a book, Scott Palangi, called Be, Do, Have. Be is what we are. We already are a certain level of expertise. Do, what are you doing with that expertise and able to have? Be, do, have. So oftentimes, martial artists in particular, they're so humble. They're taught not to talk about themselves, so they hold back about nobody wants to hear my story. Well, you're probably wrong about who your audience is. You know, maybe millions won't read your story. That's not the point. You know, would your children want it someday? There's the point. Your grandchildren, your students, those are the people that are reading it and that would like to read it. You know, and you never know that antidote that you put in your book about how you didn't quit and what it took for you to be able to struggle through certain situations. Someone else may read that and they'll go, wow, my instructor didn't quit. I see that now. You haven't got to be famous for your story to matter. That book I just told you, The 30-Day Path, you don't know that guy. He's not famous. He's a parent of a student. But his book is meaningful. So, you know, you have to document everything. You know, we do a lot of that picture taking and putting it on Facebook now. But you need to write about the times that you wanted to quit. How about the time that you failed or that you almost failed, that your school almost went under? How about that student that changed your life because of being with you? Or the instructor that you trained or that trained you, the instructor that trained you, the guy that believed in you. What was he all about? Or at least what was your take on him? Write about your mistakes. Hell, we can always remember them. The good things we can't remember. You know, we get older and we discover that, well, martial arts has to evolve because of the way your body changes and your life changes. That's a whole book in itself. You know, I carry a knife everywhere I go now. I can't kick you in the head anymore. You know, so my martial arts training changed because of that. I'm still a martial artist. I still love it. But it's more about the principles that you have discovered along the way. You know, techniques change, your body changes, organizations change. You go to different organizations, but principles never change.
Well, you know, you know, my as you were talking, I sort of flipped back in time, and you know, when I came back into the management of my martial arts school after being out for some time, and I came to you to give me a hand to get me back on solid ground, and the training programs and the manuals that you had, all that information was perfect because I could tell my students and my instructors what I wanted to do, my sales team and all of that. And I remember someone asked me, says, well, how much do you pay Lawrence? I said, well, I pay him about $1,000 a month. And this was back, what, 15 years ago, 12 years ago. And they said, really? But I said, from the information he provides, I earn 10,000. So I'll swap that all day long, you know, for that. But, you know, having that, and a reason why I chose you as a business coach, and that's why, you know, in the martial arts, you have to realize you don't know it all. If you want to be the best, you got to be around the best, because, you know, I could figure everything out myself, which would take so much time. But, you know, I come to you, you've already got a system, you've got a curriculum, you've got the manuals, you got the books for me to go to study, you know, accountability. So those books, elevated your coaching because you had something other than just the word of mouth. And that was one of the key things when I came to you. I'm the guy that knows everything. I just hadn't been using it for a while.
You'd be surprised how many old timers that come around and they go, the stuff I used to do 30 years ago doesn't work anymore. What do I do? And
well, it was really just sort of I'm hanging out at Nike. I'm doing coaching stuff. I'm doing Duke. I just haven't been selling in the office and coming back and having to take over and to be able to do those things. But, I still have your books and your material. In fact, I just saw it just a couple of days ago. But you are an author and a coach. And this is what martial artists can do. They can take that book and now, have a coaching training book and be able to do that. So everyone, we just wanted to come on today and just so you can see our faces. I'm hanging out in Vegas in a couple of weeks for the Who's Who in the Martial Arts Hall of Honors I'm hosting. And I just finished with my good friend, Grandmaster Lawrence Authur, with this amazing event that he held in Lynchburg, Virginia, just a few weeks ago. And, it was just totally amazing. And, like I said, I'm coming up in Vegas, and I know you have something coming up, organization thing coming up, your 50 years in just a few weeks, a few months.
Yeah, our nominations are closing out this week. The nominations will go out in the mail. People who want to find out more information, go to the website. It's afkaonline.net, and you can find out all the information. But the event's going to be November the 14th. It's our big event. I say big, it'll be 300-400 people there. Black tie. We try to, like you say, the GOAT Awards, I try to do it as first class as I possibly can. I want everybody I want them to experience what I wanted to experience when I was coming up. But we were coming up, they didn't have this type of stuff. So we didn't get a chance to do it. But at least it leaves, and I have the people from 6-year-old kids up going up for honors because they've all had something to part of their martial arts training. Somebody nominated them for some level. So, yeah, thanks for giving me the plug there.
Hey, you've done a great job of building a fantastic organization, great leadership. And anyone, if you're definitely looking for a mentor in the martial arts, and I personally recommend, Grandmaster Authur, to come out and be able to give you your hand. He has so much information. So if you're thinking about publishing a book, then reach out to me. I am the founder of Elite Publications. Everyone has a story. You just have to get it out. Go to our website, which is www.who'swhointhemartialarts.com. Also, in the post, you can click on the link there and learn more about our 100 author program. I am supporting 100 authors in promoting and writing and marketing their book. And so, give me a buzz, 919-618-8075, and let me know how I can help you make a difference in the world. Any last words, sir?
No, I certainly enjoyed the conversation with you. Always do. Looking forward to seeing you in Vegas. Couple of weeks.
2 weeks and counting.
Yeah.
Well, I've already told my wife, all right, I got to get deep here because I know, Grandmaster Authur, you can be over there checking me out.
I'm there to learn. Yeah. I'm there to learn. That's all.
Well, don't worry. We got it set for you. Everyone, be blessed. And remember, as a martial artist, teach someone, help someone, be a part of making the world a better place. This is Grandmaster Jessie Bowen saying, be blessed.
Bye-bye.